Kicked off on Tuesday. Today, I have an amazing copywriter and messaging maven, Laura. Say your last name, Laura. It's a tough one.
Majitano.
Majitano. Okay. Right now, after knowing you for 2 years, I need to practice saying your last name. Majitano. Laura Majitano. She is going to be chatting with us today about your marketing message. And this is such a critical component of all of our businesses. It's such a fascinating topic to me. So I'm really excited to bring Laura to you all today to give us some tips and some insight on marketing and messaging. And we'll probably talk a little bit about making sure that we are honoring the times or the season that we're in as an entire society, an entire planet. I'm sure we'll get into a little bit of that because that's really important for all of us to keep in mind as we're creating our marketing messages these days. So Laura, welcome. And have you take a couple of seconds to tell us a little bit about you, your background, and do a quick introduction.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you so much. I always love doing stuff with you, Megan. You're just amazing. Okay, about me. So I copyright for and run marketing, messaging, email marketing campaigns, all of that for coaches, thought leaders. I actually do have one physical product that I do marketing for. It's a skincare line with high frequency energies infused inside, so it fits within the coaching industry realm. And yeah, so we just I don't know what else to
add. Well, how about this? I think it's always so cool for people to find out how we know each other. Laura and I actually live. It literally is like an 8-minute drive. We live about 8 minutes from each other. We live in the same county, but just 2 towns that are right beside one another. And our daughters are the same age. They're in the same grade. And we have not always known each other, though. Laura and I actually got to know each other when she first moved here. And I think we connected online and then realized we literally live down the road from each other. So our 2 families have actually gotten really close. We hang out on the weekends when we can hang out on the weekends. We were just talking about getting our daughters together today to do like a Zoom play date because, they're both only children. They're super close, but I think it's so cool to find out how 2 people know each other. So that's how me and Laura know each other. Well, let's dive in. Let's talk about the importance, how important your messaging and your content is to your business, whether it is connecting with an audience, converting people. I think that, I'm actually running in one of our paid programs, I'm running a challenge right now. It's a month-long challenge, and it's a content that converts challenge. And it is really to get people in the habit and the rhythm of actually A, creating content every day, and B, posting that content every day. And then the third element is actually getting good at crafting a message that is compelling, that attracts an audience, and then eventually converts an audience. So let's just kind of open it up, Laura, and just start talking to us about what's just the importance of messaging and content on a daily basis in our business.
I am going to say that it is the most important thing because guess what? If your messaging is off, your emails don't work. If your messaging is off, your social media doesn't work. If your messaging is off, your ads don't work, your funnels don't work. Nothing else works if the messaging is off. It's literally the foundation of everything else in your marketing. And so it has to work first. And so in terms of how important it is, I think it's the most important thing to get right. And you and I both know that you can be very low tech, high touch, and basically build your entire marketing plan just on communicating with people and building relationships with them. So while all the other things are great, really messaging is the foundation for being able to build a business. So absolutely, it is the most. And I love what you said about actually converting and that you're running the challenge of creating content that converts. And I think what's important about that is, and what I love about that you're doing that is most of the time I find people, and we've talked about this before, they're just creating content to create content. They're like, I know I'm on social media. I know I need to be sending emails and listing my list. I think newsletters. I'm sending, and a lot of times when I connect with those people, I say, okay, well, what's the goal of that newsletter? Why are you sending it? Like, what are you doing with that? Or what is the goal of that post? And we've talked about this before. The difference that a copywriter is going to do, who's trained to write persuasively, they're always going to know what they want to achieve from the post, right? So when I put out a post, I know I want them to enroll in my email list, or I want them to join my Facebook group, or I want them to buy my program, or even I just want them to enroll in my school of thought, in my messaging, in my movement, in my belief system, my culture that I'm creating for my brand. But I always have a goal in mind, and I'm not just putting out content for the sake of putting out content.
Yeah, I'm really glad you brought that up. So I would, suggest if anyone's taking notes, write this down, that the first step is always start with, what is my end goal? What am I trying to achieve with this piece of content, whether it's a Facebook Live, an email, or a post? So always start with what's a goal. And, let's be honest, I think all of us have gotten into the trap I'm about to say, which is we're not planning time to create content. We do not actually have like a larger big picture content strategy in place. Therefore, what I see happening to a lot of folks is they get to like 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon and they realize they have like this OMG moment and they're like, oh my gosh, I have not communicated with my audience at all today. I better get something out so that I'm in front of my audience. And then they're literally in between like 15 different activities they've been doing all day long, and they're trying to squeeze in content creation in this tiny little block of time where they're probably not even focused. And so they just put something out there, and then they wonder why they're not building relationships, they're not converting. So let's actually talk about that. Like, I'd love to hear from you. I'm sure you have like your own personal way that you get in flow with writing content, but how important is it to actually put content creation in the calendar and protect that time and protect your energy around that? Talk to us a little bit about how you do that with yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Number one, kind of back to the not having a plan, because you brought that up. One of the things that I do that is very strategic that I think everybody needs to be doing is I reverse engineer my content. So if I know I'm going to be launching, and this is for me and my clients, if we know we're going to be launching a program, I'm going to be writing the sales page first. I'm going to be writing the sales email second. And all of it's going to trickle down into the opt-in, the social media posts, all of that, so that my message is consistent all the way through, and it's all leading them back to the end result in mind. So I think that's one thing that people can really take away and start doing, is starting like reverse engineering, starting with the end result in mind, so that you're strategic about the pain points you're touching on, or desires and the dreams that you're speaking to, all of which point back to the what you want them, the ultimate end goal, rather than what the thing that I see people doing is like, oh, I'm just going to create this freebie, this opt-in, or I'm just going to talk about this today, or what can I talk about? No, you want to know exactly what pain points, desires, results you want to be hitting on now for what you're going to be launching in the future. So that's number one that I think is really, really helpful, is to reverse engineer that. And then exactly what you said, setting aside time and protecting it. So you can either do it first thing in the morning, you can block full days. I'm somebody who blocks full days because I do meet with my clients and I just schedule all of my client calls. That kind of takes me out of that creative headspace. And then I have days where I refuse to schedule client calls. And those are the days, so I'm like, those are my writing days, and I can just block full days to like mentally get in the zone. Do what works for you. Some people like to set aside time every morning. Some people like to block, I like to block full days. And then I am a huge, huge fan of setting a timer. Set a timer for 90 minutes. You'll be shocked. You'll be shocked at what you get done if you set a timer for 90 minutes, right, stop, take a break, get up, walk around, go outside, get a drink, get a snack, go to the bathroom, take a break, come back and set another timer. You will be shocked the amount of writing that you get done. You'll be like, oh my God, I wrote 30 posts in 90 minutes. Compared to whatever you were doing before you would set a timer. I'm a huge fan of that. The other thing I want to throw in that can really improve if you are not a natural writer is audio. Speak it. Use either like Otter, which is an app you can use to transcribe, Rev, whatever, transcribe it, and then clean it up. If you're a speaker, you're going to get a lot of content created that way, and it's going to flow easier for you.
Got it. So a couple of things that I'm hearing from you that I think it sounds so simple, so I don't want people to miss this. But I think what happens to a lot of folks when they're creating content, right? And like content can be written, it can be audio, it can be video, it's your emails, it's your social media posts, it's podcast episodes, it's sales pages, it's landing pages, it's all the things, right?
All of it.
Where people are getting stuck is they're not actually starting with the end in mind and reverse engineering. Therefore, they're creating all these things. So the assets are there, the posts are being made, the emails are being sent, whether they're consistent or inconsistent, we'll get to that in just a second. But we want I call it like we want the dots to be connected.
Yeah.
Because the audience, at least from what I've learned, the audience is not going to try to sit back and overthink and use all their brain power to try to connect the dots to figure out what type of pathway you're actually leading people on. And that's something I've heard you talk about, Laura, like the client pathway and like all these different pieces. You're taking your ideal client on a journey, right? Like
yes.
Start to finish. Shed a little bit of light on what you mean by that when you talk about like our content is taking people on a journey. What does that mean?
Yeah, I mean, it really is when you think about, even just think about how people come to solving their problems. Like, right, at first we're like maybe completely unaware we even have a problem. And then we're aware, but we're not really motivated. Then we're like maybe interested, but it's what I call chronic pain. So there's a difference between chronic pain and acute pain. So if your, audience is in, a lot of your audience is in a chronic pain state, they're aware they have a problem. It's maybe a little annoying, maybe a little frustrating, but they can live with it, right? Whereas acute pain is like, I'm in so much pain, I'm going to the hospital right now. When you go to the hospital, you don't care how much it's going to cost, right? Yeah. You're not like, well, how much is it going to cost, right? You're like, my arm is broken. Right? And I say that because both of our daughters broke their arms last year. You're like, her arm is broken, fix it. I don't really care what the bill is. And you want to move them into that place of acute pain because that really serves them, right? They'll go on forever and ever and ever in a state of chronic pain and never get their problem solved. We've got to take them on this journey of pushing their buttons and moving them into acute pain so that they will finally take action and get their problem solved and live a better life. So what I mean by taking them on a journey, number one, is we're taking them on a journey of like getting to know you, building that know, like, and trust, that relationship, forming that connection, the same way we build relationships with friends and people, right? It's not like, hey, it's not like with my husband, it's not like he walked up to me and said, hey, will you marry me? Like there was an evolution of that relationship. So that's part of the journey that's happening. And the other part of the journey that's happening is they're moving from that, like, maybe they're not aware there's a problem, maybe now there's aware, but it's not acute pain, to where they're like, okay, I'm ready to take action. This is who I want to be. And you're kind of helping their whole identity shift along the process. So I actually think that creating high quality content and copy is one of the best things you can do if you want to be a transformational leader, because even the people who are immediately joining your programs or that you're serving and your clients, you're changing their life. You're moving them along a journey and creating a transformation for them, which is really exciting and cool.
Totally. So when we're creating this content to take the ideal client, the prospect on this journey before they start working with us, are there different styles or different types of posts, emails, whatever, that we really need to be focusing on and kind of like mixing it up a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, totally. You want to create some posts that are going to be really focused on building that relationship and building that connection. You want to create, and same thing with emails. You want to create emails that are really designed to create belief and around your idea or your solution. You want to create posts that establish like authority in your space that establish yourself as a leader, like as an expert in what you do. Same thing with emails. So you can come on this journey, and a lot of times this will happen in like a nurture sequence and on an email right after somebody opts in, and you're not going to immediately go, hey, buy my stuff, right? Like that's not the right message at the right time. It's really important. And a good friend of mine who does marketing always talks about having the right message at the right time. So, it's funny. I, as a copywriter, follow a lot of other copywriters, and a famous one, you may know, Laura Belgray. I just got an email from her the other day, and she's like, hey, most of the emails she sent me so far have been nurture emails. I haven't really been on her list during the launch yet. And she sent out an email to me. She's like, hey, guess what? Sometimes I sell things. By the way, I sell things. I'm going to be going into a launch soon, just so you know. And I thought that's really cool, right? Yeah. She's been building this relationship with me. She's been nurturing. She's been telling me all her little quirks about how she loves to go get food samples at Sam's and Costco, and like all these little things about her that build this like relationship and connection with her. And then she's like, hey, just so you know, sometimes I sell things. I'm about to start. I'm going to put an offer in front of you. If you don't like that, you can remove yourself from that list. If you do, you're going to love the email. So that's an example of how you can really move somebody on a journey where you're getting to know them, you're building relationships, and you're like, okay, now I'm going to let you know we're moving into the next phase of our relationship together.
Okay, so something that this just reminded me of was you were telling the story about Laura Belgray, and I actually recently got on her list as well. I think I opted into some sort of lead magnet of hers where she was giving away like 35 or 40 different, like her top subject lines.
That is an amazing list.
Yeah, and she actually had like the email open rate, the percentage open rate on each one of those subject lines was really cool. So I just got on her list too. That's such a good idea. I'm going to do exactly what you just said. So something else that you just reminded me of, and you helped me with this in the past, Laura. I remember you were teaching at one of our retreats that we run, and I asked you the question, how much do we talk about ourselves in our content? Because there is this element of letting people into our world and letting them get to know us. And, we struggled at some point, we transformed. And to your point, when you're talking about Laura, the examples you just gave, like she's talking a lot about herself because you're learning about her. So how much do we talk about ourselves? How much do we talk about the prospect, the ideal client? What's like a beautiful marriage of those two things?
Great. You can talk about yourself as much as it relates to your ideal client. Okay. So I can tell you story after story after story after story about myself. As long as I'm letting you know, they want to know, like, that people are pretty self-centered, honestly. They want to know, what does this have to do with me? So if I'm telling you a story about me, I just did this in my Facebook group the other day, is I got on and I was like, here's why I bought a $2,000 comic book in a coronavirus economy. And they're like, well, they care if I bought a comic book in a coronavirus economy. But I tied it back around to actually very from the beginning even, I made it clear that this is going to be about them and how they're operating in their business and their mindset in the economy, right? And so the same thing is true. And that's the other thing, as a side note, is people think that the only story you can tell is your big, glorious brand story and not these little tiny moments of your life. And that's really what you want to seek to find. Yes, the brand story is great. You want to always find the little tiny moments of your life that you can relate back to them. Because you're telling the story from the position as the mentor or the guide, not the hero. We talked about this before. You're not the hero. So you're not the one who's like, oh, you want to say, as in, look at me, look what I did, this is what happened. You want to say, this is what I've learned, this is what I've gone through, this is the experience that I have that you can learn from. That's a huge difference in saying, oh, look at me and what I did versus this is what you can learn from the experience that I've gained.
Yeah.
And you're positioning yourself as a mentor.
This ties in so well, Laura, to one of the interviews I did yesterday with Marilyn Aloria, who you also know. I think you've done some work with Marilyn.
I write some copy for her, yes.
Yes. So yesterday we were talking about getting outside of just having your head down in your business. Yeah, you know her body of work. So we were talking about hobbies and passions and, activities that you love to do outside of your business. She was even asking me some questions like, what did you used to do that really lit you up? Or like, what are the things that you do outside of your business that just allow you to be fully who you are? And I was talking about playing tennis and riding my bike and going down to the water with my family. So this is so key, because yesterday in that interview, we were talking about you have to live life, because by you living life and giving yourself experiences, even if it's just a short period of time every single day, that's going to feed exactly what you're talking about here, Laura, which is, I do think people get really stuck on this one big story of transformation that I have to always talk about.
Yeah.
But people also want to know about what you're doing in your daily life and how that can be turned into stories, which I know you are so good at. It's like you could sit down. I heard, I was in a mastermind retreat a couple weeks ago, and this guy came on as an expert. His name is Ryan Lee, and he chatted for just a couple minutes about email. And he was like, every day when I sit down to write my email, and he sends one out every single day to his list, he's like, these are the 3 questions I ask myself. What did I do yesterday? What am I doing today? And what am I doing tomorrow? And just asking the question, like, what did I do yesterday? It might spark and activate an idea of what you could write about as it relates to your body of work and the transformation you create in people's lives and the ideal client. But if we're not actually living, and we're not actually experiencing, and we're not actually expanding ourselves to be a better version of ourselves, we get boring, we get stale, we have nothing to write about. So when you're listening to Laura talk about creating content, one of the most important places where that content's going to come from is through you allowing yourself to live life out from behind your computer, which leads me to what you are so good at, Laura. You're so good at teaching storytelling. So I'd love to hear you talk a little bit about how we can incorporate the art of storytelling in our content, in our email, in our posts, and how effective that is to the audience.
Yeah, oh, totally. So one quick thing on that note also, if you're struggling with the content creation thing, like we talked about in the beginning, going out and having fun is going to massively improve your creativity. So it's going to give you content and improve your creativity. So I highly agree with you on that 100%. But yeah, stories are absolutely the most effective way to sell. They're the most effective way to gauge your audience. So and Megan's probably tired of hearing me talk about this because I'm obsessed with it. Our brains, we do not spectate when we hear a story. It's actually through the trigger of empathy that we go on the journey of the story with the person. They hook their brains up to brain scans while we're watching movies or reading a book or a play. And the emotions that the hero or the main character is feeling, we're feeling those too. It's why we cry in movies. It's why we smile in romantic comedies when they finally get together, right? We're actually feeling those emotions. The same is true when you tell stories in your content. When you write an email or do a Facebook Live and you tell a story, they're feeling those emotions. And people buy on emotions. Write that down. People buy on emotion. And people don't buy what they need, they buy what they want. And they want to feel that emotion. So if you take them on this journey of something you've experienced, then they're going to be like, I want to feel that emotion, right? I want to feel that emotion that Megan's making me feel when she tells me her story, when she tells me what she's doing in her business. I want to feel that. And that's the thing that's going to get them to buy. So I would, just like you suggested, Megan, start looking at your day-to-day life and applying that. Tell your story to your business, to your message, to what they can learn from. Again, you are positioning yourself. You are the Yoda to their Luke. You are the guide. You are the expert, the leader. Start positioning yourself and say, this is what you can learn from my experience. This is what you can learn from what I did yesterday, even if it was playing tennis.
Yep. Okay, so we've talked about like making sure you know what your goal is. We've talked about reverse engineering from that end goal, whatever it is that you're ultimately offering next in your business. We've talked about storytelling. We've talked about carving out time, batching your time, whatever works for you to create your content. This has been so rich in literally just like 26 minutes. A question I have a feeling people might be thinking about, and this might get into a little bit of tactical things, but people might be thinking like, what's the balance between telling my story, talking about results my clients are getting, giving educational posts and value and free content versus the call to action and selling and actually inviting my audience to take an action or buy my stuff? Is there some sort of like ratio or balance or dance between all the different like types of posts? Because again, like everybody's an entrepreneur here. Everybody, like the only way you're going to seriously transform a life is if they're joining your programs. And if we're a business owner, we really need to figure out how to be selling kind of all the time. Like it's not a good thing to go months without making a sale. So is there some sort of balance that you could shed a little bit of light on?
I end up selling all the time. And one of the things that I tell people when they come to me and they're like, I feel like I'm getting, and I've shared this with you before, I feel like I'm getting a lot of likes, a lot of comments, a lot of engagement, but nobody's buying or not as many people buying as I want. I know right away the problem is they're giving away too much how-to content, too much teaching content, and they're not touching on those emotional trigger points, those pain points, those desires. Remember I said people buy an emotion, and people buy what they want, not what they need. You can logically make the case all day long that this is what they need. They're going to buy what they want. They're going to buy what they're emotionally triggered to fulfill that need.
Yeah.
So 100%, I say create that emotional content constantly, invite them into your programs constantly, do it in a way that feels genuine. People don't want to be sold, but if you can actually solve their problem and you come from a place of like, look, I want to help you solve your problem. I know I can help you. I want this for you. Nobody's going to feel like they're being salesy or manipulative because they can feel that that's genuine. And I say, create that emotional triggering content and sell to them all the time. When I run email marketing for people, it is rare that I send an email that does not have a call to action to spend money. It is rare that I do that. Not everybody in the industry is going to agree with me, but I can also say, I was just sharing with you before this, literally every single email that I'm sending out right now is making money.
Yeah. Laura and I were chatting a couple of minutes before we came on, and we were actually talking about what we're seeing in our email, like to our own list. And both of us are seeing our email, and Laura has a ton of clients that she's actually tracking all of that for. We are seeing our email open rates. I mean, I was sharing with Laura, my email open rate is double right now what it has been in the last few months or even last year. And Laura was expressing to me, like literally almost every single email she's sending out for her clients, people are buying, they are making sales. So I think that, we're doing so much on social media, and I've literally grown my entire business on Facebook on this platform. And I do think we won't get into a big conversation about this, but everybody be growing an email list because it is an asset that's never going to be taken away from you. So the emails to your list are just as important as the social media posts you're making. So Laura, let's kind of like tie a bow on this, and let's assume that all the listeners here, they have a business, they're clear enough on who their ideal client is, they're clear enough on what they offer, they're clear enough on what their gifts are. Like, let's just make that assumption. Let's assume that people are creating content, but let's assume that there is not really like a theme. They're not really taking their clients on a journey from start to finish. They're not really seeing the results that they'd like to see from their content, their copy. And let's assume that people are being a bit inconsistent. What might be like 2 to 3 tips, like action steps that people can start like literally implementing today to make some positive changes to see better results in the area of messaging and copywriting? What you got?
Number 1, decide what the end goal is. Know where you're taking them. Know the journey. No, you can't get to New York. Like, it's like we don't want to like be on a runaway train and we don't know where we're going. If we're going, I can't sell you, let's go to New York if I don't even know that we're going to New York, right? So number 1, decide on an end goal. Number 2 would be to get clear on the pain points and the results and the emotion. Get clear on the emotions that is going to get people to take action. What emotional triggers will get people to take action. Know your pain points, know the desires that they have, know the results that they want. And number 3 would be to create time, set aside time to create content based on those emotional triggers.
Cool. Awesome. Everybody, it is scrolling across the bottom of the screen. So you can see step 1, decide on your end goal. Step 2, get clear on the emotional triggers. And step 3, create time to create that content.
Yeah.
Amazing. This was so good, Laura. So good. I know you have got so much, so many like valuable tips and resources. I know you have a Facebook group. Obviously you are taking on clients, writing copy for them, running Facebook ads for them. You have like this entire marketing agency going on over there. Where can people get in touch with you? Where can they find you and continue to learn from you?
Actually, the best place to get in touch with me is my Facebook group. It is Orgasmic Marketing for Entrepreneurs. Don't worry, it's not crazy inappropriate, but it is a place where marketing gets to be exciting, where marketing gets to arouse desire, where marketing gets to be beyond boring, right? Don't be boring. So connect with me in my Facebook group. Let me know when you're new. Say, hey, welcome here, and I'll send you a little free gift. And yeah, that would be the best place to show up.
Awesome. Super cool. And we would love to hear what your biggest takeaways were from today's conversation. So if you're watching us live, go ahead and comment with your number 1 takeaway. And let's make that takeaway the number 1 thing that you are going to shift or change and do differently when it comes to your content creation. And if you're catching the replay, we want to hear from you too. Laura, this was so rich. I mean, you gave us so many detailed pieces that we can literally go implement today. And I'm not kidding, like see changes and the results that are happening in our businesses. So thank you so much for being here and for sharing your amazing gifts with us today.
Thank you so much. It was such a pleasure and honor.
Awesome. All right. Bye, everybody.